So, solving radicals. There's not really notes today. You know how to do everything we're going to do, so we're just going to do a couple practice. I'll do one with you, and then you'll try one. We'll try one together, and by the time we're done, we may have half of this worksheet finished. Well, that's by the time I'm done, and by the time you're done, you may have it all done. Answers are online. So the answers are in Schoology. And if I remember right, it's like that last worksheet where it's one file. Page 1 is the worksheet, page 2 is the answers. So it looks like they're not there, but if you click on the file that's in today's folder, the answers are built in. All right, let's do number 1. Solve each equation. Remember to check for extraneous solutions. So that's going to be happening today. On the test, when that will happen, we will tell you. Well, not that it will happen. We'll tell you when you should check. So that's probably the most missed thing on this is not checking. So hopefully when we tell you to check, that will remind you to check. So let's do number 1. What do you think we should do first on number 1? What's that? Move the 1 over. So let's add 1 to both sides. 5 equals square root p minus 6. Well, the next thing I'd like to fix is that square root. What would undo a square root? Squaring. So let's square both sides. So 25 equals p minus 6. Well, this problem just got pretty easy. Add 6 to both sides. P equals 31. Careful. Got to check for extraneous solution. So before you box it, we got to check it and see that nothing crazy happened. Let's see. And to check, you show as much of the check as you want to show, because if you don't check it and it won't work, then it'll be obvious that you should have checked it to me when I'm grading it. So as soon as you figure out that it's good, you're fine. You don't have to show 10 steps on this problem. But as soon as you see that, wait a minute, -1 plus 5, that's 4. We're good. So we're good on that one. So about the only thing we're doing today. I mean, we're doing other stuff, but square both sides. That's sort of the key to the worksheet right there. Square both sides. Why don't you try number 3, and then we'll go over it together. So take a couple minutes. Try number 3. So square both sides. In some ways, this is maybe easier than the last one because the square wipes out the square root. And so right away, you're to a Algebra 1 type equation there. So I'm going to add 4n to both sides to get the n on the left. And I'll subtract 1 from both sides and get -3. Which makes me a little nervous because it's negative. Negatives is what messes things up. But we'll check it and see what happens. Square root of 1 minus 3 times -3 equals square root of -2 minus 4 times -3. So this one's the square root of 10. I don't know what that is, but that's okay. Let's just keep working the other side here. -2 plus 12. 12 minus 2, that's square root of 10 as well. So we're good on that one. So that one's a good one to see that sometimes you start thinking, negative numbers don't work. No, you can't square root a negative, and sometimes that's the problem. But just because you get a negative answer, that doesn't mean that things are good or bad. It just means you better be careful. Let's do number 7 together. 7 and 8 are the harder problems, so we'll do 7 together. And then you can try 8, and then we'll be done. What do you think you want to do first on number 7? Let's just go one at a time. How that left-hand radical, how could I unradical that thing? Square it, if that's a word, unradical. Yeah, square it, that'll fix it. What it really messes up, though, is the stuff on the left. So the stuff on the right's easy. The square and the square root cancels each other out. Like that. What about that stuff on the right? Do you know what we're going to have to do there? Because I can't square the pieces. You can't do that. Please don't do that. So if you're squaring something that looks like that, you're going to have to FOIL. So multiplying it times itself. And the same thing's going to happen on number 8. There's just no way around it. So it fixed the left-hand side, and it's going to mess up the right-hand side. And even though it looks bad, because we're foiling, because it's a square root, it's not going to be as bad as it looks. Because when I do square root of negative 2 minus 2n times the square root of negative 2 minus 2n,
it's just negative 2 minus 2n.
Right, there's just negative 2 minus 2n. So, okay, that one wasn't too bad. When I do the outside, I get plus 1 times square root negative 2 minus 2n. The inside, I get the same thing, plus 1 square root negative 2 minus 2n. And then last is plus 1. So there's definitely some cleanup work to do here. Negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1. Minus 2n plus 2 square root negative 2 minus 2n, because there were 2 of them. Well, this is kind of a weird one here, what's about to happen, I think. So our next job is to get the square root stuff by itself, because then we can square both sides again. So if it has 2 square roots, you may have to square both sides twice, one time to fix each one. 3 was a little bit of a fluke because it was just square root equals square root, so one square root caught them both. 7 and 8 aren't going to work that way. Although this is kind of weird what's about to happen, because when I add 1 and add 2n, I get 0. And then I can divide by 2. So I still have 0. Finally square root both sides again. And I'm down to a easy algebra 1 equation. 2n equals negative 2. N equals negative 1. But I have to check. Well, checking shouldn't be as long as the problem took. So all the way back in the beginning, everywhere there's an n, we're going to plug in negative 1. Let's see if this works. Everywhere there's an n, we plug in negative 1. Checking to make sure I did that right. Yep. Now I want to see if this thing works. So let's see. On the left, I get 2 minus 1. That's 1, and the square root of 1 is 1. On the right, I get the square root of negative 2 plus 2 is 0. So it does work. So, square both sides. Sometimes it's pretty easy, like namely 1 through 6 are all pretty easy. 7 and 8, you got to square both sides, then shuffle things around, and then square both sides again. Again, answers are online, and tomorrow we'll go over a few of the ones in class.